My brother's fiancée, Miss Meghan Markle, is on the American program Suits.
Yes, Wednesdays, 8 p.m, USA Network. Check it out. She's amazing in it. Yeah?
Right. The only difference between that show and this is people watch this one.
It didn't happen in a palace, and it didn't come from a Netflix special. Meghan Markle's downfall in public perception didn't begin with some shocking scandal. It began with jokes. What was once sold as a fairy tale of love and independence slowly got turned into a comedy sketch, and the punchlines just kept getting louder. But how did Meghan and Harry go from royal rebels to permanent punchlines? That story starts in an unexpected place. Late night comedy. Saturday Night Live fired the first shot. Meghan and Harry became recurring punchlines, and audiences couldn't get enough. From mocking Meghan's Suits career to poking fun at royal family feuds, SNL reframed their image, not as glamorous ex-royals, but as characters in a comedy routine. When the laughter started landing, other comedians smelled blood in the water. Late night hosts jumped in almost immediately. One joked that Meghan's acting career could put kids to sleep faster than a bedtime story. Another ripped into Harry and William's rivalry, treating it like material instead of monarchy. The message was clear. Meghan wasn't being treated like a serious star anymore. She had become content, the kind comedians dream about, and the laughter wasn't just background noise, it was the beginning of a cultural shift. But late night comedy was just the warm-up act. What came next would be harsher, sharper, and impossible to laugh off.
Michael, we like to apologise. Unfortunately, William's hair was unable to make it this evening. It's devastating.
Oh, bravo! Hilarious. Yes, a bald joke.
If late night comedy was the warm-up, stand-up comedy was the main event, and no one delivered a harder punch than Chris Rock. When Rock took the stage for his Netflix special, Meghan's claims that she didn't know what she was walking into with the royal family became his easiest setup of the night. With one line, he cut through her carefully polished narrative. "You didn't Google these people?" the audience roared. It wasn't just a joke, it was a demolition of Meghan's innocence act. Rock didn't stop there. He flipped her most dramatic claim, racism within the royal family, into the night's biggest laugh. He said Meghan had hit the light-skinned lottery and was still trying to play the victim. It was savage, and it stripped away the sympathy she had been working so hard to build. But Rock wasn't alone. Andrew Schultz, known for his brutal style, didn't even pretend to care about royal drama. His punchline was blunt: "We don't care." In one riff, he reminded Americans that the country had stopped caring about monarchy back in 1775. He painted Meghan as manipulative and Harry as clueless, turning their royal spectacle into nothing more than a reality show nobody asked for. And then came Nikki Glaser, who took the narrative in a different direction. Instead of seeing Meghan as a victim, she framed her as an opportunist. Glaser imagined Meghan as a contestant on The Bachelor, desperate for fame and willing to chase a prince to get it. The implication was brutal, that Meghan hadn't stumbled into royalty, she had hunted it. By the time stand-up comics were done, Meghan wasn't just being laughed at, she was being exposed, dissected, and reduced to punchlines that hit deeper than any tabloid headline. What started as jokes on late-night TV had now turned into a comedy-feeding frenzy. But if stand-up comedy took the gloves off, what happened next was even more brutal, because animation doesn't pull punches. It exaggerates, mocks, and cements images in a way that's almost impossible to erase.
Whenever the kids are being fussy and not going to bed, she puts on an episode of Suits and they're out. So,
what are you doing? Ow!
Stop it! Stop it!
Thank you, and goodbye, said William's hair. Yes.
All right, Prince William and Prince Harry, everybody. What is this?
If stand-up comedy tore Meghan and Harry apart with words, animation shredded them with images, and once cartoons got involved, the ridicule became impossible to escape. HBO's The Prince was the first to sink its teeth in. The show turned Meghan into a fame-chasing spotlight addict, and Harry into her clueless sidekick, constantly stumbling behind her shadow. Every episode exaggerated their supposed greed, their obsession with relevance, and their Hollywood hustle. What Meghan had hoped would be seen as a powerful rebrand away from royalty was now reimagined as a running gag about attention-seeking. And while Americans were laughing at HBO's parody, the British took things even further. Spitting Image, the legendary puppet satire, delivered a version of Harry that was lazy, whiny, and talentless, someone who had traded duty for comfort. Meghan, meanwhile, was portrayed as desperate for the spotlight, staging interviews and curating every word just to stay relevant. The puppets were harsh, but that was the point. They turned Meghan and Harry into exaggerated exaggerated caricatures, versions of themselves that people couldn't unsee. The message across both shows was brutal. Meghan and Harry hadn't escaped the monarchy at all. They were still cashing in, just with bigger paychecks and fewer crowns. And because these jokes were animated, the images stuck. Viewers didn't just hear the punchlines. They saw Meghan as a cartoon hustler and Harry as a puppet of his own choices. But as sharp as satire was on television, Meghan's real troubles weren't only coming from screens she couldn't control. Her next move, her attempt to reinvent herself with a polished lifestyle brand, would only give critics and comedians even more material to work with.
Lot going on to the news. My God, it's so crazy out there. What's going on with Meghan Markle?
After being hammered by comedians and cartoons, Meghan tried to shift the spotlight. Her plan was simple: rebrand herself as a lifestyle queen. But instead of earning credibility, the move backfired and handed critics fresh ammunition. It started with her cooking and lifestyle project, which was meant to project elegance, influence, and authenticity. But the carefully staged image cracked almost immediately. During one taping with Mindy Kaling, Meghan awkwardly corrected her for saying Meghan Markle instead of the Duchess of Sussex. That tiny slip should have been nothing. Instead, it exploded online. Viewers clipped it, replayed it, and turned it into comedy gold. To many, it didn't come across as confidence. It came across as desperation. From that moment, her brand was hijacked by the internet. Meme creators and parody channels pounced. Viral clips mocked her as out of touch, obsessed with titles, and more concerned with image than substance. One parody even turned her cooking show into a joke about teaching people how to prepare water, stripping away all glamour and replacing it with ridicule. The more Meghan tried to build her brand, the more it reinforced the criticism she was trying to escape. Instead of being seen as a lifestyle icon, she was painted as shallow and overly polished, someone whose every move was about optics, not authenticity. And just when it seemed like the roasting had reached its peak, a storm was brewing in the world of satire. Because if Meghan thought memes and parodies were brutal, she hadn't seen what South Park was capable of.
Like, what's this girl, Meghan Markle? Ah, seemed like a nice lady. Just complaining. I was like, didn't she hit the light skin lottery? Hit the fucking light skin lottery and still going on complaining. Trying to be a victim.
If internet parodies mocked Meghan, South Park obliterated her. The show's worldwide privacy tour episode became one of the most brutal takedowns in their history, and it left Meghan and Harry's image in tatters. The satire was simple, but devastating. Meghan and Harry were portrayed as jetting around the globe with giant signs demanding privacy, all while shoving cameras in their own faces. It was a gag so sharp that it cut straight to the heart of their contradictions. They wanted attention while screaming that they didn't. And South Park didn't hold back on Harry either. He was drawn as the perpetual victim, a man born into unimaginable privilege, yet still whining like he was the world's most oppressed figure. His memoir, his interviews, his truth-telling, all of it was reduced to one long punchline about self-pity. The show's Meghan was even more ruthless. At one point, she casually dropped lines that summed up what critics had been saying for years, that her normal life image was just a front and the spotlight was the real goal all along. In one animated gag, South Park managed to cement Meghan and Harry as hypocrites in the eyes of millions. What made the satire so lethal wasn't just that people laughed, it was that the joke became reality. From that moment, whenever Meghan and Harry talked about privacy or independence, audiences couldn't help but picture the cartoon versions holding up their ridiculous signs. But if South Park redefined Meghan and Harry as comedy characters, another animated juggernaut was waiting in the wings, ready to twist the knife even deeper.
Lot going on to the news. My God, it's so crazy out there. What's going on with Meghan Markle? She thinks that everybody is just stupid. Like we can't see that she is manipulating his dumb husband. I really feel sorry for the family. Maybe everybody's fixated on how good looking this guy.
If South Park tore Meghan and Harry apart with contradictions, Family Guy went straight for their wallets. The animated juggernaut didn't just mock their contradictions, it mocked their careers, their deals, and their desperate grip on fame. One scene landed lampooned their massive Netflix deal, suggesting the couple had pocketed millions without anyone really knowing what they had actually produced. Another gag exaggerated their sponsored social media posts, painting them as influencers cashing in with meaningless brand shoutouts worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The implication was clear. Meghan and Harry weren't building legacies, they were chasing paychecks. Harry wasn't spared either. Family Guy twisted his tell-all interviews and memoir into running gags about a man addicted to victimhood, someone who claimed to hate the royal spotlight while never stepping out of it. Meghan, meanwhile, was portrayed as the fame-hungry partner, pushing their brand forward at every turn, even if it meant leaning into the very monarchy they said they had escaped. Together, the cartoon versions of Meghan and Harry looked less like brave ex-royals rewriting history and more like out-of-touch influencers desperate to hold on to relevance. And because Family Guy reached an entirely different audience than South Park, the damage doubled. They weren't just being mocked on one platform, they were being roasted across the cultural spectrum. By this point, the pattern was undeniable. Stand-up comics had laughed at them, late-night hosts had roasted them, internet creators had parodied them, and now, the biggest animated shows in the world had reduced them to permanent jokes. But the real blow wasn't just the laughter, it was what came next. Because Meghan and Harry weren't just mocked for what they said or did anymore, they were mocked for who they had become.
They're so racist, they're so racist. Some of that he went through was not racism. It was just some in-law. Sometimes it's just some in-law. Cause she's complaining, I'm like, what the she talking about?
By the time the animated shows had their say, Meghan and Harry were no longer shaping their own story. The comedians were, and the harsh reality was this. Every new move the couple made only added more fuel to the fire. When Meghan launched her lifestyle project, instead of winning respect, it became instant meme material. Viral edits mocked her every gesture, painting her as pretentious and obsessed with titles. When Harry dropped his memoir, late-night hosts were already writing monologues before the book even hit shelves. Even their attempts at silence became a joke, because now the world expected them to speak, complain, or cash in. That's when the shift became permanent. Meghan and Harry stopped being seen as real people navigating a complicated royal exit. Instead, they became cultural shorthand. Their names turned into punchlines about hypocrisy, privilege, and overexposure. In pop culture, few things are deadlier than hypocrisy. Once the audience sees it, they can't unsee it. And that was the trap Meghan and Harry couldn't escape. Every attempt at reinvention became fresh comedy material. They tried to paint themselves as underdogs, as rebels standing up to the crown, but satire twisted those attempts into caricatures, making them look like privileged players crying foul while cashing checks. What made it worse was how sticky satire is. Most scandals fade away with time, but once South Park or Family Guy cements you as a cartoon punchline, that image sticks forever, and that's exactly what happened here. Meghan and Harry weren't just being mocked for their words or actions, they were being mocked for who they had become.
Going on Oprah, I didn't know. I had no idea how racist they were. It's the royal family. You didn't Google these motherfuckers? What the fuck is she talking about? She didn't know. What the fuck is she talking about? She didn't know. The fuck? It's the royal family. They're the original racists. Oprah, they're so racist. They wanted to know how brown the baby was gonna be. They're so racist. They wanted to know how brown the baby's gonna be. I'm like, that's not racist. Cause even black people wanna know.
In the beginning, Meghan and Harry tried to sell themselves as the couple rewriting the royal story, a modern fairy tale of love, freedom, and independence. But somewhere along the way, the script slipped out of their hands. Late-night hosts, stand-up giants, animated juggernauts, and internet creators all picked it up, rewrote it, and turned it into something Meghan and Harry never planned, a running comedy routine. What was once painted as rebellion is now viewed as privilege dressed up as struggle. What was supposed to be a brand of elegance and empowerment has turned into a meme factory where every move sparks another parody, another joke, another viral roast. Instead of being authors of their own story, they've become characters in everyone else's sketch. And that's the most brutal truth of all. They walked away from the crown, but instead of freedom, they found themselves crowned as punchlines. In comedy, once you stop being treated like real people and start being treated like characters, the damage is permanent. That's why Meghan and Harry aren't just mocked for what they do anymore. anymore. They're mocked for who they've become. The late night monologues, the stand-up specials, the cartoons, the endless memes, they all tell the same story. Meghan and Harry lost control of their narrative and the world isn't giving it back. So now the question is yours. Did Meghan and Harry bring this fate on themselves, or did comedy go too far? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And before you go, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our deep dives into the biggest stories shaping pop culture today.